Okay, great. Hello, everyone. It's Cassandra here, our community coordinator, and I'm Giselle from Kids Yoga Stories. And we want to have a conversation today about how to get started teaching yoga and mindfulness to children. It's a question we get time and time again, and we thought maybe if Cassandra and I had a bit of a chat, might be something of value to those of you out there who are having similar problems. So, Cassandra, one of the things that we're hearing about from our community is how to get started. Like some folks are either the sort of a spectrum, right? Some people are saying, I don't have my own practice. I don't really know where to start, but I really want to help children with their mental health and their basic overall lifestyle. And I don't know how to get started. Through to people are saying, I am like a lifelong learner. I'm an information junkie. I've taken all the courses but I still don't know how to apply it to my situation, right? On that spectrum. So let's think about what we can do to help folks thinking about how do you get started. Can you kind of relate to that on that spectrum?
Absolutely. I definitely find myself like an information junkie. And I find like as powerful as knowledge is and as exciting as it is to learn more things, sometimes I find that can hold me back because I feel, oh, I've learned this, but I haven't perfected it. And so I want to go and research more and more and more to the point where I just keep putting it off and then I don't actually get started. So I find that there can be a fine line between going and researching and getting all the information and then also realizing that you've got enough information to just do it and get started. So
It's
absolutely.
so true, so true. And we probably notice this pattern too, in not just about teaching yoga, but we'll probably see this pattern in other parts of your life, like you said, like you mentioned, being a perfectionist, learning all of the things, right? And having the courage to take that first step, right? And it reminds
Absolutely.
me thinking about, I'm reading Mindsight by Daniel Siegel, and he talks about that, again, coming back to the right brain, left brain. And oftentimes a lot of us have this right brain ideas like one of my things I've had for a decade is I have a writing book. I'm always writing ideas down. That's my right brain thinking. I have the best ideas come up in the shower or when I'm exercising or whatever, but I have to write them down. But
Mhm.
the difference is those of us who have all these creative ideas, but it's the left brain that we need to put it into action, right?
Right.
And it's about accessing both and balancing both our left brain and right brain.
Absolutely. And I feel sometimes too with that right brain thinking that a little bit of that imposter syndrome kind of comes up, right? Our brain is telling us, you don't, you don't know enough this yet. You aren't a professional or you're not qualified. And often that imposter syndrome or that right brain, as smart as it is and willing to take in information as it is, sometimes it also tells us that we can't do it. So I find, yeah, you've got to definitely balance that right and left brain in order to actually get started and kind of shuffle or shut out those thoughts of imposter syndrome.
Right. And to your point too, there's this sense of there's a lot of emotions and feelings involved,
Mhm.
right? And so how do we get out of our own way, right? And so it's like you said, the imposter or I'm not good enough.
Mhm.
How many times have I heard that? Like I live with it still after 10 years of working on kids yoga stories. I still wonder, is this good enough? And it's being able to do the good enough, right?
Mhm.
To do good enough in whatever you're producing or whatever class that you put together, whatever, and then do it. And then you learn from it, right? We talk about reflection in your mindfulness club, right? There's a lot of reflecting that goes on. So maybe that particular class didn't go as you expected, but how do we learn from that and how do we move forward, right?
Exactly. I would totally agree. And I find even more so too, your passion, like the passion that you have for teaching yoga and mindfulness is actually a little bit of a better qualification than, say, any other certifications that you may have or any other knowledge or lack of knowledge. Is if you have the passion and you want to do this and that is your goal to help kids or to help people with yoga and mindfulness, then that is enough to get started, is just harnessing that passion.
Right, exactly. And you and I have talked about this concept of Kaizen, right? The Japanese word of small incremental steps. And so I think about when I first started Kids Yoga Stories, I remember a couple things happened. So one of them was my daughter was 9 months old and I was living in San Francisco. So it was just me and my little bubs. And my husband used to work down in San Jose. So he was gone, from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. And I didn't have any other friends with children at the time. So we were very isolated, the two of us, right? And he came home one day and he said, you need to do something other than talk about our kid. so in me, my like mama bear, right? This tiger, like, okay, that sparked something. And then someone else I was talking to like a business coach and a colleague, and she was saying, what is it that you really, really want to do? Because by this time I'd been teaching for over a decade. And I said, well, I really want to publish my yoga books. And she said, well, what's stopping you? And I was like, you're right. Why not? Right. And we didn't have a lot of money back then and whatever. I just thought I'm just going to spend, I gave myself $1,000 or 600 or something. And I looked Upwork and I found an illustrator, whatever. But the point is that like, sometimes there has to be some fire in your belly to actually make it happen. And then once you've got that fire in your belly, it was literally when I put my daughter down to nap. So it was a nap time business. It started with Kids Yoga Stories and our first two books, Anna and the Rainbow Color Yoga Mats and Sophia's Jungle Adventure, which by the way, had been in my computer for 10 years before this. So I completely understand where people are saying, I've got this in my computer, I haven't put it into practice, right? So then it was just every day nap time for an hour, 2 hours, start working with the illustrators and then publishing and start a Facebook page, and here we are 10 years later. This act of consistency has been such a gift, right? Every Thursday we have a newsletter, right? And we're always producing content, and we're always talking to our community, and we care. So it's not just the passion, but it is the consistency that has really moved us forward, right? So I'm curious about your story because you started a mindfulness club at school, right? So how did you decide to start, and what were those sort of first steps to get you going?
Absolutely. So for me, mindfulness was an important part of my own personal journey in healing, or in, I guess, kind of transitioning from, a young, naive teenager to the adult world. It was quite a slap in the face almost for myself personally, and my mental health definitely took a hit. So mindfulness and yoga were a huge part of my personal practice, and it helped me to shift perspective and just to be okay with life. And I realized how big of an impact it had on my life. And at the time, I was working with kids, and I probably had a mindfulness practice for about 5 years, maybe 4 or 5 years at this point. But my school community was a quite vulnerable school community. There was lots of traumas, lots of kids who've been in and out of foster care, very hard situations that they had to live with at such a young age. So for me, I just felt propelled to do something about it, and I felt like mindfulness really helped me. And I didn't really want these kids, growing up to be 18 years old, going through the same thing that I did, and then realizing that they, couldn't handle life, and when I could have, helped them with some of these strategies at a younger age. So that's kind of where my, I guess, desire to start a mindfulness club was. And I also had quite a few challenges that I had to really think about. I was an educational assistant, and so I didn't have my own classroom. I didn't have like my own space. I didn't have even my own schedule and time, because I was working one-on-one with a particular student with special needs. And so I was very limited, but I was very driven to do this. And so also kind of with using that practice of Kaizen, I thought about taking it like little bits at a time. How can I split this up? How can I address each challenge that I was facing? And how could I more effectively bring mindfulness to my kids? So I kind of broke it up, and I was able to talk to the school and the people that I felt I kind of needed support from, the classroom teacher that I was working with, our principal, just in sort of, I guess, brainstorming ideas of how I could work around my time constraints or my space constraints. And both of which were very open to me practicing this or bringing mindfulness and yoga to kids. So they made it work. And we started off small. I know we were chatting before, my mindfulness club kind of evolved throughout the years. So year one, it was a little bit of a trial and error kind of year, but it ended up working amazingly and kind of set the tone for the rest of the years for me. And so I was kind of getting different kids each time at the beginning of the year. We or at the beginning of the day, sorry, we did like a 10-minute mindfulness exercise, and then they would go off to their classes. And then that kind of evolved with lots of feedback. I got lots of student feedback, and really had them assess themselves and their kind of, I guess, their interests and likes in the activities that we were doing. And then I kind of evolved that. In the following years, it became a mindfulness recess club. And we had theme days, mindful Mondays, wind down Wednesdays, and flexi Fridays. And I was able to kind of address all of those needs and, of course, the challenges. I was really happy that I had kind of just did it anyways the first year, because otherwise I found I probably would have kept putting it off if I would have said, like, I don't have the time or I don't have the space. But I probably would have just kept putting it off. And so I'm really grateful to have just been able to kind of get it started and to really talk to the people in my community. They really, really made it a reality for me, because it was an idea in my head, but I wouldn't have been able to implement anything if I didn't, get the support or ask the like my support teacher and my principal about their thoughts. They wouldn't have been able to give me, kind of these ideas and the motivation to get it started.
Right. And I just want to highlight what you're saying there too, Cassandra, is that it starts with us, right? It starts with us and our own experiences, that fire in the belly I was mentioning. So for me, I was an international school teacher. And when I took yoga teacher training, I just thought, oh my gosh, like imagine if the history of yoga, this philosophy and the postures and mindfulness, imagine if this was in the school system, like how transformational that would have been from obesity to stress and regulation, all those pieces. So I think for you and I, the similar stories that we had our own experiences to fall back on, and we were also passionate. So we had this bigger, like Simon Sinek that talks about the why. So we had this bigger purpose that was beyond ourselves. And I think that is the whole point that brings you forward, and you get over your fears because you think, I'm just the messenger, right? And I've got this to share with the world. And I've been given this gift of the passion and the knowledge to do so. And I've got to get out there. And so there's an urgency piece there too, right? If you're driven by this North Star, this why, this purpose, then all the little obstacles they just melt away. Like it just doesn't matter. I'll find the funding, I'll find the space, I'll find the supplies, I'll find the connections in the different schools or whatever. So I think that's my takeaway from the similarities in both of our stories. Very in a simple way is starting with yourself, starting with your passion, understanding your purpose, and then being able to just take those small incremental steps forward. Awesome.
Totally. I would agree. I feel like that passion and that drive is really what brings, I guess, the possibility of actually achieving this goal or bringing yoga and mindfulness to the community. It's for the greater good. So like you said, you'll figure out the hows and the what's later. As long as you've got your why and your drive, you can start, and then everything else will just fall into place.
Right, exactly. And what, like thinking about your purpose too, like what keeps you up at night? I'm sure you're the same as me, right? I get up in the middle of the night and I cannot stop thinking. In fact, the Anna and the Rainbow Color Yoga Mats, the first book I wrote back in 2005, was in the middle of the night. It came to the middle of the night. Still, almost every day I wake up first thing and I'm just thinking about ideas, and I'm so passionate. I cannot wait to get downstairs on my computer and do the work. So it has to be something that you want to do day in, day out for years to come, right? And nothing will stop you.
And you have no problem getting out of bed in the morning because it's like you're excited to get started. Right, I absolutely feel that. And I'm the same. I get ideas usually in the middle of the night, but also at random parts of my day. Like I think you had mentioned as well, while you're running, maybe I usually get, if I'm outside working in the garden or going for a run or exercising, I feel I probably have lists spread everywhere on my phone, on my notebook, wherever I am, because I get random ideas. But I'm like you, I'm just eager to get started. Getting out of bed in the morning is easy for me because there's purpose driving my day. And so it's exciting.
And as you say too, it's about putting those ideas into action. So thank you so much for joining me here. And hopefully there's something of value for our community of, you're not alone in this idea of how to get started. If you have any questions at all, or if there's anything that we can do to help you take that next step, please email us at Giselle@kidsyogastories.com. We've got a team here. We'd love to support you on your journey. And let us know if this video was helpful to you. Again, we'd love to hear your stories. So thanks again. See you later. Thanks, Cassandra.
Take care. Thank you so much, Giselle.